Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and we are coming out of this international break and we are going straight into the deep end. Brendan Rodgers and the boys have been trying to fight battles on all fronts, on the pitch, in the press conferences and on the training ground and everywhere else in between. And I think for a lot of Celtic fans, so much of the focus and the attention has been the meeting with the board, the transfer to policy and all the other stuff really off the pitch. But we've felt it as the season has kind of wound on that we'd have some problems off the pitch. Celtic have got 7 games in the next 25 days. We've got that semi-final derby match, of course. We have 2 absolutely must-win Europa League games, and we have a bunch of must-win domestic matches as well. And make no mistake about it, if we do not win every single game in this chapter of the season, we are going to be talking about it, because whether it be missing out on treble, dropping points in Europe, or even losing ground on Hearts at this point in the season, it is going to make headlines. With 7 games in 25 days, this will be a huge test of Brendan Rodgers and the squad, the tactical versatility, and, you know, the variability of the Celtic squad and all the different players that have been told you're going to have a part to play, you're going to have a role to play when the going gets tough in the season. This should be a point in the year where it is all hands on deck and we should see the best out of the Celtic squad and the best out of the manager. In the video today, we're going to be previewing this chapter of the season, who's involved in it, and you know, really who could be the main movers and shakers from the squad that will really help us to go on and win every single one of these matches as we demand and as we expect. At any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and get into the comment section and let me know your own thoughts and feelings on this chapter of the season. Is it season defining? Is it must win for every single game? And who do you think is going to be the hero that stands up, or the heroes that stand up and, you know, make this chapter of the season their own and become a real match winner, become a real hero for us? But yeah, let's just get stuck straight into this one, because these videos, as I say, it's all about jumping into the deep end. And if we have a look at the next 7 fixtures that we've got until the next international window, like I've mentioned in the intro, it is going to be all hands on deck. As soon as we come out of the international break, our first game is away to Dundee, which, you know, given their standing and where they're at the moment with everything under Stephen Presley, this is a game you would expect Celtic to do well in, an early kick-off on a Sunday. But we've been up to Dens Park a few times and really had to fight for the points, so definitely not a gimme. Right off the back of that, we're going to be taking on Sturm Graz, who maybe just about put the final nail in Russell Martin's coffin, and a team that, you know, we'll talk about them in a bit more detail, but when we previewed the Europa League, when we had the fixture draw come out, this was a game that we all would have thought when the draw was made we should be winning. And, you know, if we can win this with a bit of style, it maybe sends a bit of a message out there to the other side of Glasgow. But right off the back of that, we are going to be going to Tynecastle. Early kick-off on Sunday away to Hearts. And you know they're going to be treating that game like the mother of all cup finals. Tynecastle is always a tough place to go at the best of times. And right now, depending on your vintage, if you're anywhere similar to an age where I am, you're probably getting a lot of George Burley Hearts kind of deja vu around this. We then have a Wednesday night fixture where we're taking Falkirk on at home. The Dundee United game, as you can see, is postponed because the weekend after that, we are playing in the semi-final against Rangers on the Sunday, before then going away to Denmark to take on the mighty midgets of Midtjylland. And in our final game before the next international break is at home versus Stuart Kettlewell's Kilmarnock, who we've already faced this season, we know a little bit about. But there is no rest for the wicked here. Every one of these games, you could even say, like, if we're looking at Falkirk at home, Dundee United away, Dundee away is like easier games. They're certainly not total gimmies, total write-offs. Falkirk were the first team to break our defensive lines this season, of course, and we've already mentioned, sorry, I said Dundee United there, of course, it's postponed. It's just because it's on the screen there, it really threw me off. You can insert Kilmarnock into that if you like, but even the easier games here are not a given, they're not a formality. Now, you might have scoffed a little bit when I'm talking about losing ground on Hearts, but Hearts over this period only have 5 matches themselves. They don't have any cup action, they don't have any Europa League or anything like that to worry about. They are quite simply going weekend to weekend, match to match, preparing for them as best as they possibly can, with that aim of hanging on to top spot. Of course, their second game is against us, but outside of that, away to Kilmarnock, St Mirren, and then playing both the Dundee teams, they're going to have a big test on their hands themselves, but make no mistake about it, they are going to be marking their calendar the same way that we are here on the channel, and really looking at, you know, how season defining at this chapter of the season is going to be, where Hearts will be looking at themselves thinking if they can come out of that period of the season with 4 wins out of 5, especially if they get some points against us or something of that nature, they are going to be firmly established in a title race with us, make no mistake about it. This is the table as it stands right now. They're only 2 points ahead of us. We've played the same amount of matches. They have scored a lot more goals than us, but Celtic's defence has been the difference this year. With 7 games played, the rest of the table is super tight. Kilmarnock are on 10 points, and the team, let's not talk about Aberdeen, but even Dundee, second bottom, are only 4 points behind. So there's no real, like with the exception of Rangers probably, there's no real weak team in the division right now. Everyone else is, you know, Kilmarnock, Dundee United, St Mirren, Motherwell, Hibs. But the 5 of them are so tightly matched right now in terms of how they're performing and how they're viewed with everyone else around there, that, you know, all these points in that mid-table section and even the points we and Hearts will be looking to pick up will have to be hard earned. And I said this a few weeks ago, and I just want to reiterate it again, especially now that they have no manager. But seriously, Rangers are just not coming back into this title contention or anything at all. Their goal is finishing third at this point, and if they can finish third, I think that will be somewhat of a, you know, they got away with this being a terrible season. Third will be seen as terrible, I'm sure, by a lot of their fans, but for where they're at right now, that is the top of the mountain that they can get to for me. Now, the Europa League games that we have, we're at home to Sturm Graz. Now, I did the full Europa League preview. I'll link it at the end of this video in case you missed it. I did have that one down as a win. You guys probably did too. But then going away to Midtjylland, I'm quite certain I had that down as a loss or a draw. I definitely didn't have that as a favourable result. But after 2 games into the competition so far, Midtjylland find themselves second with 2 wins, having beaten Nottingham Forest and, funnily enough, Sturm Graz himself. And Celtic, after 2 games, find themselves down in 28th. Now, again, when the group stage was drawn, I thought away to Red Star or Chivencha that we would have got a draw there. I thought that was like, I couldn't forecast we were going to get beat off a team like that. And obviously we did draw the match, so that was, you know, from a bird's eye view, from a projection point of view, you know, we kind of got par what was expected. But the game against Braga, I had us down to win. You know, Braga generally don't do well away from home. Having watched the game as well, I think we would all agree that is a game we really should have and could have won, and we don't need to go into disallowed goals and all the rest of it. But being on 1 point after 2 games is below par, is below scratch, and we're under a lot of pressure now to qualify for this tournament, because as much as the table is still super tight, nothing's defined, there's no real cut-off, and this is going to be tight all the way to the very last game. There is some really big teams in this competition that are in a similar position to us. Nottingham Forest on 1 point, Bologna on 1 point, even looking at the likes of Stuttgart on 3, Fenerbahce on 3. Nothing is going to be a given in this tournament. Nothing is going to be easily earned. We really do need to win both of these games if we are going to be in contention, in the mix for even top 24, never mind something a bit more spectacular like potentially top 8. After 4 games, we would then find ourselves on 7 points, and I think if we were on 7 points after 4 games, we might find ourselves in this kind of 13th to 15th type area here. Sturm Graz have lost to Midtjylland and beat Rangers, of course. And Midtjylland, who we've already just previewed, of course, beat Forest and Sturm Graz himself. This is the Celtic squad we expect to be at our disposal for this period of the season. And I think, you know, really, looking at it from this view here, it's a decent squad. We've got a lot of goals, we've got a lot of versatility, we have a high floor, we have a high standard, a high level of quality all the way throughout the squad. I think from everything we're reading and seeing, I would expect Alistair Johnston to come back into the squad at some point in this run-in, but his reintroduction will have to be probably a little bit delicate because we don't want to break him too soon, but we do need him for some of the most important matches. What are the matches that we would really want to make sure that we've got Ralston back for? I personally would really like to see him come back in for the Hearts game, but would you throw him into the Hearts game from the cold? Would we need to see him maybe re-emerge or re-feature maybe off the bench against Dundee or Sturm Graz before we could see him come into the Hearts team? Hard to say, and really hard to know precisely where he is in his recovery. Failing that, I think the Falkirk match being on a Wednesday night could be a lovely precursor to bringing him back in for the semi-final before then completing this next little run out of games to close off the international break, where it's hard to imagine that Canada would call him up, given he's just back from injury and stuff. Maybe they would, but then having that international break thereafter to help him recompose, resettle, and then attack the rest of the season. And obviously he's got his own international ambitions with the World Cup right around the corner, with a real focus and being in a really good place physically. So it'll be interesting to see where Alistair Johnston's reintroduction is, potentially over one of these first 4-3 games, if we didn't have him from Graz or for Hearts, then that is going to provide a really big test and be a really big eye-opener for where Brendan sees Anthony Ralston's effectiveness in the squad, as well as the future and the potential of someone like Colby Donovan. Because Colby Donovan, for example, I could see him playing against Sturm Graz and probably doing very, very well. I'd even say I could see him excelling in that type of situation. But against Hearts, especially at Tynecastle, I think you're more looking at the Anthony Ralston type player who has been there, seen it, done it, won't, see the red mist or be affected by the occasion, and will be able to just stick to the task at hand. I think he did very, very well against Motherwell, and I think it's that sort of performance that you're looking at. And having that amount of quality and depth in at right back for a position that's quite key without being critical is really good to see. On the left hand side, we do have similar depth and quality with Tierney and Sriracha, and I think what we're going to see over these 7 games between the two of them is the exact same as what we've seen already. I don't expect Tierney to get any 90-minute shots throughout this 7-game period, and I've been on the record quite a lot on this channel around everything Tierney and saying 5 games a month is his real limit. Now let's see how he does in the second game for Scotland. That point of recording, that's not happened yet, because that might have a wee bit of a domino effect. But I think it's quite easy to imagine that we're going to see Tierney start the likes of the Sturm Graz game, the Hearts game, the Rangers game, and the Midtjylland game. So I think those 4 matches there make it quite easy to start Tierney. The Falkirk game almost certainly feels like a match we could see Sriracha start from the beginning in, and you could probably say the same about Kilmarnock. So it's really this Dundee game is maybe one that's kind of up in the air ever so slightly. But the great thing about Sriracha is he has been everything we wanted him to be, and maybe even a little bit more. A very attacking and a very, unmistakable influence on the team. You really do see and you really do feel what he does contribute to the side in attack as well as in defence. And I would really hope with a nice rhythm and a nice balance in the team and in the squad throughout this period, we could get that same level of output we got from Tierney at the beginning of the season in this really crucial period here, because that's one of the main reasons and benefits of having a deputy like Sriracha in the mix here, is really there shouldn't be any reason that we are forcing Tierney to start every one of these games. We should really be picking our battles with the left backs, maybe even straight one in, one out between the two of them match to match, just to make sure we get the most out of both of them. We keep the opposition on the back foot, and between the pair of them, if one doesn't start, they're both very happy to come off the bench and be very effective. So this is a really key part of the pitch for me right now as well. We just spent a wee bit of time talking about right back, but as you can see with all the attacking options and the style of play that we've been having, we are really left focused right now, especially if we're going to be playing Dyson on the right and we want him to tuck in when the ball's coming down the left. So really optimising and making sure that Sriracha and Tierney are really in tandem and really in sync in a great way is going to be a key feature, I think, of these matches, and what will probably make or break some of these matches individually with who starts and who excels from fullback, whether it be left or right back, of course. I think for centre back, it's most certainly going to be Scales and Trusty for the most part in this one. Scales and Vickers for the most part, but we have seen Trusty come back to training. JSP is played for the B team now, so if he was exiled for not doing that, he's now returning from exile, and we might see him now start to feature in the squad somehow, somewhere. And we've seen where Dane Murray's availability in the squad is, and I think we know how he kind of plays and features. I think Carter Vickers is the only one that really does need the minute management here. But without us playing away to Killie, we're not away to Livy, we're not got any of these funny plastic pitches, we're not got to drive all the way up to Ross County or anything like that in this period of fixtures. I don't think any resting or rotating of the likes of Carter Vickers, or maybe even Scales for that matter, is going to be down to conditions, to surface, etc. It will just be down to minute management. Now, Carter Vickers has actually been away for international duty in this window, which isn't a regular occurrence for the big man. He's not played in the first game. We'll see what happens in the second, but still a lot of travel, a lot of jet lag and that sort of thing. So if he didn't play against Dundee, I wouldn't be totally surprised, because I do think you want to just make sure Carter Vickers is good to go for Sturm Graz. It's one of the things that has blighted his Celtic career, is his absence from Europe, and I think, if maybe Trusty came back in, it wouldn't surprise me, or a JSP or a Murray to partner Liam Scales against Dundee wouldn't be a huge shock. But make no mistake about it, it's going to be our best centre-back pairing, which right now is Scales and Vickers for Sturm Graz and for Hearts. You're going to say the exact same thing about the Celtic Rangers game as well as the Midtjylland game. So it's only really the Falkirk match or the Kelly match where we might see somebody else come in from defence, I think, like in terms of a whole new pairing. Maybe go back to Trusty and Murray, who seemed to be the rotated centre-back pairing earlier in the season, and two guys we've seen play together a lot in pre-season. So it'll be interesting to see how the manager manages the defence, because we've got so many, for the level we're at, fantastic defenders, really, if we can just be honest about it. So many options, and with 7 games in 25 days, we don't want the defence to break. We want to manage Vickers, we want to optimise Tierney, we want to slowly, correctly reintroduce Alistair Johnson into the team, so that the best back four, when it gets back together, is better than ever. Now, the midfield over this period for me is going to be very, very revealing, because we've seen Ben Negren be ever-present, so second top goal scorer in the league, I think, if I've seen correctly on the page that we had a moment ago. Luke McKibben is rotated in quite predictably at times. You can see the kind of rotation pattern that he's been used for so far, and Engels has been slowly kind of brought and introduced back into the team. We see Hatate continue to be ever-present, and Bernardo continues to be this figure on the periphery. But in the last couple of games, we did see the manager go to a 3 at the back. We have seen some different combinations with the midfield. And with some of the other options that we've had come into the team in the summer transfer window, especially the emergence of Tuneke, the slow introduction of Balikwisha, we're starting to get much more of our traditional midfield free, in the sense of whoever it is playing together, whether it's mainly been Negren and Hatate, they're getting tighter together. They are working as a pair, and they've been doing a lot better at actual chance creation. And when that is the build of the midfield, partnerships, synergy, harmony, all these things are even more valuable than what they normally are, because you're looking for that muscle memory. You're looking for those reps where in the heat of the battle, when your head's down and you're under pressure, you know where your pal is to make the pass, you know where the out ball is, you know where the killer ball is, and these are the margins, these are the moments that separate champions from second best. And I think we're going to see a lot of Negren and Hatate. But make no mistake about it, McKibben domestically is still as effective as he really has always been for Celtic. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him again start your Falkirk and your Kilmarnock games, maybe even against Dundee away. But what will be really interesting to see is how Arnie Engels is used in this period here, because I really did feel, and I always say this, we get the best out of Engels on the left-hand side of midfield here. In the Motherwell game, we got what I was asking for, which was Engels and Negren to be played as a pair. And alongside Balikwisha, that trident really clicked in together and really worked fantastically. And the good thing about the way these three work together is it's about football. It's not really about pace. It's not about skills. It's just about being in the right place, making smart passes, beating your opposite man, and going forward with the ball at every opportunity. And I would love to see more of that little, don't want to quite call them a trident, but that little three-way connection here of midfield to left wing, where we're going to be focusing our attack and stuff. Get the chance to, develop more of a partnership, to create more of an identity for themselves within the team that can be a different tactic, a different route to go, because Engels and Negren in Balikwisha, for example, would be very different than Negren, Hatate and Tuneke. And again, you could maybe do a wee bit more of styles make fights kind of idea, where if it's a back five or a back four we're against, are we playing Rangers and Hearts, or are we playing, Dundee, Falkirk or Killie, that sort of thing. And I would love to see that sort of A and B protocol with the midfield and maybe the left wing position like we're discussing here really show itself, because I love the fact that nobody talks about how much Tuneke cost, and it was one of the first things I said when we signed him, like, I just will never mention it. I only mention it now to say I love how no one else mentions it, which is fantastic. But Balikwisha is just as valuable to us in so many ways, and is a player that has more proof in the pudding, has got more kind of battle scars, he's kind of got the miles on the clock already, and this is a player that if we can get him as comfortable and unlock him to the same way that we've almost just about done with Tuneke, we can get another dimension out of, and I think we can really begin to excel. Because Tuneke, although he started like a house on fire, I think we've seen him a little bit revert to type here, revert to the mean, where the reason we found him in Norwegian football, Swedish football, whatever, and why he's not made it to a bigger club is you have question marks over these guys, whether they can step up the level, whether they can do it week in, week out. Can they handle it at that kind of higher octane, that higher pressure? And Tuneke looks like he's right up for it. I think we've all seen that. His play style is very Brendan Rodgers friendly, and I think we've seen all the success that we've had down the left wing with him. be, because he's compatible with the rest of the team. But like any winger, eventually you're going to get 2 men closing you down and then eventually 3 men, and that becomes really, really tough. And being out there by himself to be challenged by that, he's not going to continue to be as effective as we've seen him being. And that's where the synergy in the rest of the team, whether it be the midfield with his left back partner, whoever it might be, is really the key to keeping him being as effective as we feel he has been so far. I'm not too sure what this period of the season will have in store for Yang. Maybe just super sub, maybe the Falkirk game at a push. I think we're going to see Dyson start basically every one of these games. Maybe Forrest will play against Falkirk or something like that, but really Dyson feels like he is the only right winger that is in contention of this. Again, maybe it's Yang as well. Maybe that's the way it's going to pan out. I expect Iheanacho to start every one of these games, and I think we're going to see a little bit more Johnny Kenny all the way through this period here in terms of being super sub, or maybe even start a match or two in the place of Iheanacho. Callum Osborne's been playing with the B team. Maybe he could get a second chance moment to come into the lineup. And with just Shin Yamada's been MIA. Who knows what will happen with him in this chunk of the season here. But with Kenny being Europa League registered, it feels like any minutes for a backup striker in this period should only really be used to get him available in case we need him in our hour of need. If we're thinking about it realistically, the amount of, and I'm trying to put myself in my own shoes here and think about each one of these individual matches. What am I going to be saying for the score projection? The match preview. Celtic are going to win, score 2 or 3 goals, blah 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 blah, all that kind of thing. If we're going to win all 7 games here, how many goals will we have to score? You've got to think at least 2 on average a game. You're thinking about 14 to 15 goals across 7 games as an average. Maybe we beat Sturm Graz 1-0, Midtjylland 1-0, Falkirk 5-0, but whatever, but it will kind of maybe scan out to be like the 15 goal average. That's a lot of goals to go around, and that is going to require a lot of attacking football and a lot of different players chiming in, because Iheanacho's not going to score 14 of them, Dyson's not going to score 14 goals. We're going to need so many of these players to be contributing in, and I would expect to see the likes of Iheanacho grab 3 or 4, Dyson 2 or 3, the Gren 1 or 2, Hitate has to get back in amongst the goals, never mind our boys on the left wing, and then you've got the supporting cast where surely someone's going to score a header from a corner at some point. Maybe somebody else could actually chip in with a goal from open play from one of these other positions. And I think that is the missing piece of the puzzle. I don't really have much problem imagining Celtic going through these games, keeping clean sheets, keeping games tight, and keeping the scoreline against us down. But where we've been missing it this year is seeing us take the handbrake off and really go after team after team, game after game. And that is going to put a lot of focus and a lot of pressure in these matches, particularly Hearts, Rangers, and I'm going to say Midtjylland away, as we are going to need the goal scorers, the match winners, whoever fancies himself in the squad, Hitates and Maedas and McGregors and Iheanachos, Balikwisas, Tunekis, you name it, Ben the Gren. If you think you're a match winner, if you think you're the hero, this is going to be the period of the season where if you can rinse, if you can repeat, if you can absolutely slay it for the boys in green and white, then you are going to be seen as one of the most important players of the season, and it can be then a real springboard to a massive, massive season. This is a period of the year where it was really all about Nicholas Kuhn, and he was doing everything for us last year, and we can all remember, and we all went through it last year for how effective he was, how amazing he was, how our opinion of him rose, and then how those performances in Europe rose and became even more meaningful and effective as a result of that. So it then has a snowball effect that compounds and rolls down here. So a lot of pressure, a lot of expectation, but that's what it takes to be at Celtic, and we've got 7 games that we need to get 7 wins out of. I personally have got a lot of faith, or not faith, but I've got a hunch. I've got a really good hunch feeling Balikwisha is going to really come up in this period of the season and announce himself as being, a really formidable player and a great signing for us. I think the Gren is going to dispel the naysayers in this period as well. And I think for the rest of the team, there's not really too much to be said or much to be, maybe there's a conversation about Arnie Engels. Could he finally kind of shake off those shackles playing with his pal Balikwisha? I wouldn't rule it out. I guess that kind of leans into what I was mentioning earlier, but I do think that the combination of these 3 guys is going to be maybe a bit of the X factor of what gets our season up and going and what really brings this team together for me. It's never boring being a Celtic fan, and I cannot wait to get the game against Dundee underway already. This is going to be a huge part of the season where we can start to focus back on the pitch, back on the boys, and hopefully we can start to get the goals flowing back in, and we can start singing again from the terraces about it all. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on the video in the comment section down below. Hit the subscribe button for more content like this if you haven't done so already. On screen are now some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Hit the like button if you did enjoy this one, of course. Hail, hail, and mon the hoops.